Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our T20 Cricket World Cup coverage for Vendetta Sports Media. I'm Jerry Walker, and alongside me, as always, is Jarrod Prosser. Jarrod, we're through the semifinals. Any just quick thoughts? How are you doing?
It's an interesting one where both the second place getters from the Super 12s have gone through. One of those, admittedly, they probably should have won the group. They probably would have won the group if it wasn't for a washout earlier in the tournament. But geez, Pakistan come from the clouds, losing their first two Super 12 games. And look, one of those a heartbreaker to India. And geez, I mean, I know we're sort of, we're going to touch on the recapping the match, but my God, to recover the way they have has been just a remarkable effort from the Pakistanis. I'm actually like quite proud of that team.
Yeah,
They've impressed me.
yeah, it's been really impressive because I mean, as we've mentioned before, or mentioned in our podcast, you lose two matches in the Super 12, and more likely you're kind of done for the tournament and don't really have a chance of getting through to the semifinals. But after the South Africa collapse against the Netherlands, which still probably the biggest choke job we've seen in sports since the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead. But
We've probably seen bigger, but I reckon it's the
that's
biggest one in cricket.
yeah, that's true. But anyway, it's been amazing to see them just turn it around. And we've mentioned how Pakistan is a very much a hit or miss team, and they've been hitting at the right point when they've needed to the most. And we'll now touch on their match with New Zealand, which they ended up winning by 7 wickets, 153 for 3 to 152 for 4. And it wasn't exactly a great start for the New Zealand batting team.
No, losing Finn Allen early. I mean, look, you only lose 4 wickets in 20 overs. You expect to score, especially with a powerful top order like New Zealand have. You expect to score a lot more than 152. Finn Allen went early to Shaheen Afridi, and Shaheen Afridi, like he'll get the plaudits here, 2 for 24 from his 4 overs. But quite frankly, I thought this was a brilliant team bowling performance from Pakistan. Harris Ralph was expensive, but he was attacked. I mean, he's always attacking. Naseem Shah, Mohammad Wasim, Nawaz. I thought they all bowled really well. Very disciplined performance. Um, losing Allen early, it certainly didn't help. But when you have Kane Williamson come to the wicket at the loss of your first wicket, that's an inspiring thing to see your captain, one of the greatest players that your country has ever produced and may ever produce. And he took the role of the sheet anchor and just paced the innings out. Devon Conway wasn't quite able to get going. Was run out by a brilliant piece of work from Shadab Khan at mid off, and it was almost a blessing for the Kiwis that one because Conway was the guy who was supposed to hit out to score quickly while Williamson held up an end and accumulated. Glenn Phillips came, the form man for New Zealand came and went quickly, but Daryl Mitchell, finally, someone from New Zealand stepped up and decided to hit the accelerator, hit the gas. 53 off 35 for him, 3 4s and a booming 6.
Mm.
Williamson was eventually clean bowled by Afridi, just stepping right across his stumps to try and hook one over the keeper's head and missed it. And Jimmy Neesham, again, I keep saying it, best cricket follow on Twitter. Jimmy Neesham, he's brilliant. A quick fire 16, but ultimately that slow start for the Kiwis, it really set quite a modest total for Pakistan to chase.
Yeah, because I mean, when Devon Conway went out as the second wicket at the end of the sixth over, New Zealand was only 38 for 2. So it wasn't
Yeah,
exactly a great power play where you kind of, as we'll touch on in the next match, you have to really take advantage of that power play and kind of go out there swinging, especially in a semifinal match where everything's on the line.
yeah, and it like again, it wasn't that the New Zealanders were necessarily tepid or timid. I just thought, and look, they weren't at their usual, you know, batting with their usual bravado, I suppose. But I really put a large part of this down to the Pakistani bowling attack. I thought I just thought they bowled really good line, really good length. They mixed it up when they needed to. They were backed up in the field really well. I mentioned Shadab's run out. Yeah, I just thought it was a very good team performance from Pakistan. It wasn't laced with individual brilliance as much as there were some really good performances. It was that everybody performed above, yeah, just a little bit above their expectation, and that as a whole created a really tough atmosphere for the Kiwis to get their runs in. And by contrast, New Zealand, I mean, I can never say enough about New Zealand's bowling attack. I think it's fantastic. But you know, the opening pair for Pakistan, Mohammad Rizwan, Babar Azam, both scored 50s. 100 run, it was a 107 run opening stand, I think.
Yeah,
105 run opening stand.
105 before Babar Azam was caught by Mitchell from Bolt bowling. But like you said, Rizwan 57 runs from 43 balls. He had 5 4s, 0 6s. But Babar Azam had 53 from 42, and he had 7 4s. They were both just playing a great way to start. And I mean, even at first drop, Mohammed Harris came in and he was 30 from 26. And
He's been a find, hasn't he, Mohammed
he's
Harris? He's
been,
only come in for, I think that's his third match.
yeah.
He's a young fella, only 20, 21 years old, and he's just taken to this tournament like a duck to water. He's been fantastic.
Oh, he absolutely has. And I mean, at the end when he came in, it was what, 132 for two, I believe, and the end of the 17th over, and they kind of still needed at least 20 runs, and he really helped push the accelerator and kind of get them over the finish line.
Yeah, that's a good point you make. Given it was a relative, like it wasn't a low total by any means that the Packies were chasing, but it was a modest total. And Rizwan and Babar Azam, and it was really good to see Babar Azam find some form, frankly. He's had a rough tournament.
Yeah.
But they almost took it as if they were chasing 130 rather than 150. You mentioned, you know, they found the boundary, but neither of them hit a six. They both batted at reasonable pace, but neither of them were really like motoring through this chase. And there was, as much as they felt in control and like they had an acceleration in them, ultimately those two didn't accelerate. It took Mohammed Harris to come in and, you know, he scored at a lesser run rate than the other two, but the energy felt different with him in there. He was swinging hard. He was trying to make something happen. And I think he sort of energized he spent most of his innings batting alongside Rizwan, and I think he energized Rizwan a bit, the young fella. So um, a very important innings, even though it's just a 30 in a 150 run chase. I felt like it was a more important innings than that.
Yeah, absolutely was. And it was, like you said, not a huge total to chase, but Pakistan made it a little interesting as they have in a couple other matches so far this tournament. There, I would say, out of all the 12 teams in the Super 12 at least, Pakistan's matches day in, day out have been by far the most exciting. You never really know what you're going to get from them. And even it's hard to do anything to surpass that India Pakistan match that opened up the tournament.
Yeah, look, spoiler alert, when we do a bit of a recap of the tournament and after the final, I think for both of us that's probably going to get match of the tournament unless something absolutely nuts happens in the final.
Yeah, and I really don't know if it will or not, but even if something does, I don't think anything can be as crazy as that Pakistan India match, which was
Yeah.
just a joy to watch as a fan. And it was a win-win situation for us as viewers at home. Just everything about it was great.
Yeah, such a topsy-turvy match, but we're sort of
Yeah, straying away
I feel
again.
like we do this every pod. We go back and reminisce about this match from a couple of weeks ago, like it was 20 years ago. But it was just that good. But on this match,
Yeah,
we should really concentrate on this one.
no, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
go on.
was I was gonna say, like, as far as New Zealand's bowling, you kind of mentioned it wasn't you've been really impressed with them this tournament. They have been really good, but like Trent Bolt, he was maybe the outlier today. 2 wickets, 33 runs allowed though in his 4 overs. And the only other guy to get a wicket was Mitchell Santer, who
Yeah.
won for 26 and 4, not bad numbers, but after them it was somewhat of a drop off. Madness maybe Southie who got no wickets but only gave up 24.
Well, we mentioned it after England took down New Zealand that England seemed to make a really pronounced effort to get at the New Zealand quicks at Bolt, Southey, and Ferguson. As good as Ish Sodhi and Mitch Santner are, it really comes down to those quicks. Bolt, Southey, and Ferguson are wicket takers.
Mm.
Bolt and Southey can lock down an end. I've never seen Lockie Ferguson lock down an end. He's pure, like he'll take wickets, but he will go for runs. But it almost seemed to be a bit of a template. If you can get at the New Zealand quicks, the spinners are really good at slowing down the run rate, but they're not necessarily going to halt an avalanche of runs. So, it looks like Rizwan and Babar, they really focused on, okay, let's make sure that these quicks don't get off the chain here, that they don't take wickets at the start of the inning, that we can slowly get on top of them. And we've seen it now twice. England did it, now Pakistan have done it. And ultimately, it's cost New Zealand a spot in the final where, geez, 2 weeks ago, they looked for all money like probably the best team in the tournament, or at least the form team of the tournament.
Yeah, they looked like there was not going to be any team that could stop them at that point, and England managed to beat them. And even at that point, they still won the group. I thought they would. We both predicted New Zealand to beat Pakistan in this match, and
Yep.
our surprise, or it was the Pakistan team that decided to show up and ready to play. But now they're going to their third T20 Cricket World Cup final, where they were. First one was in 2007, where they were runners up, and then 2009, where they won the whole thing. Do you
Yep.
do you think it'll be a repeat of that? Do you think they can get the win? We'll touch on this a little bit later, but just
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah.
we'll hop into the other match then, which I'm very happy with. I'm surprised how well England did against India, and England ultimately won by 10 wickets, 170. Not a single wicket was taken to India's 168 for 6. And I guess we'll start with the India innings, but Joss Butler, Alex Hales, spoiler alert, were incredible.
Yeah, that was one of the best batting performances I've seen in a long time. But we do have to cover off the Indian batting performance, which wasn't bad. 168 at Adelaide Oval. It's a high scoring oval. For those who don't know, the boundary square, it's a very narrow ground, so the boundary square of the wicket are very, very easy to clear. So it tends to give up more runs than like the MCG, the SCG, any of the other grounds in Australia. So 168 felt like it was maybe just a touch below par, but realistically, maybe 10 runs, like maybe a 175 to 180 would have been about right. So they weren't exactly far off the pace. The one thing that got me with the Indian innings though was that they really struggled to score quickly. Rohit Sharma had 27 from 28 in what may be his last international performance. KL Rahul went early. Joss Butler, picked up a little tickle off Chris Woakes bowling. Virat Kohli was good, scored an even 50 without really setting the game alight. It was really only Hardik Pandya who came in and was able to really hit the ball freely. He had 63 off 33, which is a remarkable scoring rate. 4 fours and 5 sixes. He belted the ball to all parts of the ground. But India just seemed to like that. They're a classy side. They're a wonderful batting unit, but they just seem to be tied down a little bit. They seem to be going in fourth gear.
Yeah, I would say they weren't putting enough pressure on early. They were kind of playing this like maybe not quite a test match, but more like a ODI where you have a little bit more time to kind of get into the groove of things. But as we mentioned,
it was a slow start.
And
it was a very slow start from India.
Yeah, and in T20 cricket, you can't really have that slow start because you drop a couple wickets maybe, or you're not scoring quickly enough. Suddenly you'll be struggling because you'll be running out of balls to have the face. But I mean, as far as the English bowling attack went, guy who made his World Cup debut, at least this World Cup, Chris Jordan, 3 wickets for 43 runs in his 4 overs. I was surprised how well he bowled, considering he hasn't played yet in Australia this winter.
He is a good bowler. Like a lot of these English bowlers play in the Big Bash League, the local T20 league. And Jordan's been a good bowler for a long time. But it is worth mentioning, though, England came into this match without Mark Wood, who's injured, and his pace, his bounce, his aggression, often, if he doesn't pick up wickets himself, he disrupts the rhythm of batsmen and the other bowlers benefit. And on the batting side, they were missing David Malan, who's out with that groin injury that held him out for the second half of the last match. Phil Salt came in for him. And, so England, they had the excuses ready, really. So, but yeah, Jordan, he was expensive. He gave up 43 runs in his 4 overs, but he took up that Chris Wood mantle. He's a big guy, Chris Jordan. He bowls from a great height. And he tried to shake up the Indians. He didn't let them get a rhythm. He was aggressive. He was at the body. Yeah, he was impressive. It felt like he had a lot to get out of his system. Put it that way.
Yeah, he definitely did. And I mean, he got the two really big wickets. He got out Virat Kohli and Pandya. So those were two big wickets for him. Pandya came on the last ball. But India made it very interesting in their last few overs. They just kind of took off all of a sudden and scored 15, 20, and 12 in their final 3 overs, respectively.
Yeah,
And
that's all
really,
on Hardik Pandya though.
yeah,
He just thought, well, it's almost like you could almost see the changing gears with him. He was batting well, but it's almost like he looked at the score and said, "Hey, this is a semi-final. This score isn't going to win it. Fuck it. I'm going to go for glory."
yeah.
And he just about got them there. It was a wonderful counter attack from him.
Yeah, it was. He went balls to the wall and just, I'm going to hit the ball and you're not going to be able to do anything about
Yeah,
it. And sure enough, he kept going. And kind of what surprised me is because, at least in terms of those last few overs, Sam Curran, who has been such a good bowler for England, he ended up giving up 42 runs with no wickets, but he gave up 20 runs in the 19th over, which
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a lot for any over.
Oh God, yeah. And that was all Pandya,
Yeah.
just taking the long stick to him. Pandya mentioned 63. He went out in the last ball. Should have been 67. He went out to the Leicester scene dismissal of hit wicket. As he got back in his crease, hooked it around the corner through square leg to an open boundary, but trod on his off stump. It's you don't see hit wicket a lot, whether it's with the bat or the batter hitting their wicket. But it's such a rare thing to see in international cricket, a hit wicket dismissal.
Yeah, it's kind of something you don't expect to see too often. And sure enough, it's the way he went out wouldn't have, in the end, I don't think it would have made much of a difference because we'll hop into the England inning now. And it only took 16 overs to get the 170 runs. And it was a two-man show. No wickets taken. Joss Butler, Alex Hales. Butler went for 80 runs from 49 balls, 9 4s, 3 6s, while Alex Hales was just a monster. 86 runs from 47, 4 7s or 4 4s, but 7 6s. It was just a
Yeah.
remarkable batting inning from those two.
And like honestly, until the last maybe 4 or 5 overs of the inning, probably not even that, maybe the last 3 overs of the innings when Butler decided to hit out and elevate his run rate. It was Butler who was playing the conservative role. It was Hales who went all out. He was the guy that, and I don't feel right sort of diminishing Butler's role in this, but this was really Alex Hales' innings. He was just incredible. There was no answer to him. What got me at the start though, I was looking at this thinking, okay, it's a big innings. So much rests on Hales and Butler because Milan was out. The rest of the batting lineup for England haven't been consistently good through this tournament, quite frankly. And there's not a lot of bowlers in world cricket who can say they've got Joss Butler in their pocket. But if there is one, it's Bhuvneshwar Kumar, the opening bowler for India. He owns Joss Butler. And in that first, so I was interested to see how Butler would approach this, whether he'd just try and nudge him around, nurdle him around, let Hales take the strike and just basically see off his 4 overs and then go on a personal acceleration, or whether he would do the typical Joss Butler thing and just meet it head on. First over, he's hit two like cracking shots for 4 through sort of cover point region, but both of them were risky. Both of them were in the air and fell just short of where fielders would have been. So they were both quite catchable if the fielders were just a little bit around. And I thought, okay, this is either going to go really, really well for Butler, or he's going to make 16 off 10 and go out.
Mm.
And sure enough, he saw off Kumar. He only bowled 2 overs in the end, gave up 25 runs, and as you mentioned, went on to an 80 not out, carried his bat.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that he had a couple. He ended up with 3 4s in that opening over, where England ended up getting 13 runs because the first ball was a wide, so England
Oh,
was
of course.
automatically given a run for the very first ball. But it was that power play that really stood out to me, where we were talking a little bit in the Pakistan match that New Zealand didn't take enough advantage of it. England sure did. England was
Mm,
63 runs in those first 6 overs, which is the power play, which India didn't get 63 runs until the 11th over.
yeah.
So they came out firing and were just ready to go and really took advantage of only having those 2 players on the outside field.
And you do wonder when a team bats slowly in the first innings, like India did, or relatively slowly, whether it's the bowling, whether it's the batting, whether it's the conditions, or some sort of combination of the three. Quite clearly, it wasn't the conditions because Hales and Butler had no issue getting that ball out of the square into the boundary. If you look at the Indian attack, I mean, the economy rates are astounding. Axar Patel and Arshdeep Singh gave up 7.5 and over, which isn't great. And every other bowler was over 10 and over. Pandya, 11 and a third. Kumar, 12 and a half. Mohammed Shami, who's usually really economical, 13 and over from his three. Ravi Ashwin, 13 and a half, 27 off 2 overs. Like every single bowler here was just carted. This was an astonishing batting performance from Hales and Butler.
Yeah, it was probably one of the performances or individual performances of this whole tournament from those two. And really, they've picked it up significantly in the last couple matches for England and are really leading the way of a team, as you mentioned, that has not really been that consistent batting the rest of the lineup. Been very hit or miss for England. Liam Livingston had a couple good matches. Ben Stokes did a bit in the last match, but apart from them,
Yeah.
kind of inconsistent, low scoring numbers, and it'll be
And
interesting.
Milan is a loss as well. He's a really
Yes.
classy player. So it was one of these games where, this is what piqued my interest with Butler going after Kumar in the first over. But if this goes wrong, there's without Milan there's not that safety net that England usually have. So there's a lot of match winners behind them, but they're not necessarily guys who are going to go and get you know, 30 or 40 runs, 4 out of 5 innings. They're either going to win you the match or it's going to be a 5 minute cameo. So it could have gone really wrong for England if Butler's gamble hadn't paid off. But, credit to the man. He took down the bowler that probably troubles him the most in world cricket, and it led to a resounding win.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it earlier how he's never really been that good against Kumar, and he took advantage of in this match, and as did the whole 2 England players. But it'll be interesting to see how England fares against Pakistan if they do lose either of Butler or Hales early. And I was kind of worrying a little bit watching the England match this morning, and because I saw the same thing, there were a couple times where the ball looked like it was going to go right to a fielder, kind of fall into their hands. And what would have happened if that had happened? If one of those two had gotten out, would anyone have been able to step up? And I personally don't think anyone would have this match.
Yeah, look, Stokes is the one man you'd lean on. He was slated to come in at 4, but like Phil Salt playing his first match of the tournament, Stokes is a lower middle order batsman in longer forms of the game for a reason. He's a wonderful counter attacker, but he's not necessarily the guy to dig in for you. Harry Brook, Moeen Ali, Liam Livingston, I'm not convinced, that any of them are, they're all talented. Clearly, they're and go, okay, well, we know this guy's not going to give away his wicket easily. And then you go into the bowlers, to Curran and Wokes and all those guys. So it could have gone wrong, but in the end, it went very, very, very right for the
Yes,
Pies.
it did. And now that sets up the T20 Cricket World Cup final on Sunday, November 13th. It'll be a 2 a.m. start here in the US, or 2 a.m. Central Time, 3 a.m. Eastern Time. I assume, what time will it be on in Australia?
I believe it's a 7:30 start. Might be
Okay.
7 o'clock. I'll just have a quick look at that. Actually, I really should know this, Jerry.
I'm feeling it's probably
Yeah,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 o'clock local time here in Victoria.
Back at the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, and we have a rematch of the 1992 ODI World Cup where
I'm glad you
Pakistan
mentioned that.
Pakistan versus England at the MCG, and Pakistan won comfortably in that by 22 runs to win their first ever World Cup as a cricketing nation.
In an upset over England.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It was
I do remember that match. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember it. Yeah, look, this really is, England are quite rightly seen as, if not the best team in the world, then arguably the best team in the world. And after a few shaky little moments, I mean, they lost to Ireland after Duckworth Lewis. They had a washout against Australia. But that aside, you know, they, they've really they've really played superb cricket the entire way through when they've been given an opportunity to play. If you look at Pakistan, we mentioned it at the start. They lost their first two games of the Super 12s, including that heartbreaker to India. But it's I don't know. Like, I just have this feeling that Pakistan, much like in 1992 when the aging icon Imran Khan was going around for his last international bow, maybe Pakistan are the team of destiny again. It's being held in the same country, the same ground. It was held at the Coliseum in 1992 as well. So I don't know, Jerry. I just
yeah.
the cricket gods might be smiling on Pakistan on this one.
They say
They
his
all things being equal, they shouldn't win it. England are a better side from top to bottom, but you know, South Africa choking to the Dutch, all this stuff is, the chips are falling in Pakistan's favour a little bit too often for it to be a coincidence.
Yep, it's better lucky than good at times, and
Yeah.
Pakistan has definitely been lucky at times in this tournament, but they have done what they've needed to do as well. And these are two teams that are relatively familiar with each other in the lead up to the beginning of the Cricket World Cup this in October. They played a 7 match series where England won 4 of those 7. Pakistan won the other 3. And then they played one more match a few days later, and England won that as well. So England have won the last 3 against Pakistan, but it's not necessarily the full teams that we'll be seeing play on Sunday. But do you think that has any impact on the mindsets of the two teams going in, knowing that we have played these teams so much? But
Um, it's tough to say. I mean, on the whole, they'll certainly know each other. Although the bolter that is Mohammad Harris batting at first drop for Pakistan does throw a little bit of a spanner into those works. He's someone that England haven't really seen too much of. Um, and also missing Mark Wood certainly hurts England because he is the sort that can absolutely, like as I mentioned, it's not just that he gets wickets; it's that if he's not, he's such a disruptive force because he bowls consistently at 150 k's. So what's that about? Low to mid 90 miles an hour. And he gets such sharp, steep bounce that he keeps batsmen on the back foot. And that's where the other bowlers can come in. Without him in there, you wonder whether England has a natural disruptor. As good as Jordan was in this game, there's a reason that he's playing his first game of the tournament. He's just not as good as either of the bowlers. Um, at the other end, on the other side of it, you've got Shaheen Afridi just bowling out of his skin. He's a wonderful bowler anyway, but he's at his peak at the moment. Harris Ralph, who I can't say enough about Harris Ralph. I love Ralph. I love watching him bowl. But he hasn't really had one of those big games yet. And again, he plays his BBL cricket for the Melbourne Stars, whose home ground is the MCG. He has a lot of success at the MCG in the local competition. So, maybe he's due, and he's a fearless bowler as well. He's a big game type. So, I honestly, my brain says England should win this, Jerry, but there's just something that stops me putting that down on paper.
So we'll hop into that prediction.
Yeah.
What do you, as much as I want to say, I think England will win, and I want England to win. You kind of hinted at it. Pakistan is on this kind of magical run at the moment, and I know I saw a sign at the Pakistan match yesterday that was something like 1992 is repeated as 2022 or something along the lines of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it, you've got a couple of aging players in this Pakistan side, similar to what they had with Imran Khan. You had a relatively young Wasim Akram, the tearaway left arm quick who could swing it square. You've got that in Afridi. For Waqar Yunus, you've got Harris Ralph. You've just got all of these parallels, and even from England's perspective, England were led by a brilliant counter-attacking all-rounder in Surrey and Botham, or just he wasn't Surrey and back then. And England are led by led by a star wicketkeeper batsman in Alex Stewart. You've got Joss Butler and Ben Stokes as the parallels there. So I don't know. Maybe I'm reading way too much into this, and it's just the better team will win on the day. But I don't know, Jerry. I've just got this feeling Pakistan might be about to make history repeat.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I do think Pakistan will end up getting it done and win their second T20 World Cup. But do you use any final words, final predictions for what we'll see this upcoming Sunday?
I just want to apologise to all of the Pakistanis out there for us putting the kiss of death on them. Our predictions haven't been always that crash hot this tournament, to be fair. But man, I'll tell you, I really want this to be. I've mentioned it before. Pakistan can be so hit or miss. They were off at the start of the tournament, and they've just taken it. They've just picked it up and ran with it since then, and it's brilliant to watch because they're such a great team when they're flowing. I'm just hoping that they don't get overawed in the moment. I really want this to be a cracking match, and whether England win, whether Pakistan win, I just want to see some really good cricket. I want something that is at least like 80% of Pakistan India. If we get that in the final, we've got a classic.
Yeah, give us something memorable. Give us a game that we want to be discussing as much as we have been these India-Pakistan match. Give us something, some big time player to step up in the big time moments and make this match something to remember.
Before we go, who's your tip for man of the match? We've both picked Pakistan to win. So who do you think will get man of the match?
I think it'll be one of the openers, Rizwan or Baba Azhar. I think we'll see a very similar match because that's kind of something that stood out to me is it's going to be the duo of Rizwan and Azam against the duo of Hales and Butler and see who starts out the match better. And I think that'll end up being the difference. But I'm going to give it to Rizwan as of right now. I think he'll come out strong. And
I think I've always said it, and I've said it a number of times on this pod series that bowlers win your matches, and even at T20 level, bowlers win your matches. I think it'll be one of those quicks. I think it'll be either Afridi or Ralph. I'll go with Harris Ralph. He hasn't had a big game this tournament. I reckon he's got three wickets or maybe a fourfer in him. I think he will. I think he's going to have one of those games where he just tears through a top order and just decimates a batting lineup, and the rest of the bowlers come in and feast on the carcass. I'll say Harris Ralph will win it in front of his adopted home crowd.
There you go. There you have it. Harris Ralph, Pakistan for Jarrod. I have Mohammad Rizwan as player of the match and Pakistan winning as well. But that's it from us for this episode of Vendetta Sports Media's T20 Cricket World Cup coverage. Check out all our other videos and reach out to us with your predictions and thoughts for this T20 World Cup final. Reach out to Jarrod on Twitter at hey_it's_JP. Reach out to me on Twitter at JerryF007. because we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear who you think is going to win the World Cup. See who's going to be your player of the match. What have you been most excited about that's happened so far? What are you most interested in seeing next in 2 years' time? Any early, super early predictions? But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.